The idea of untouched wilderness is more of a myth than reality. For millennia, people around the world and here in BC have been modifying their landscape to create conditions more favorable to them by prescribed burning or managing and cultivating plants. There are long-term lasting effects on the ecosystems that we can see to this day. By understanding how people were changing their landscapes, we can learn a lot about their day-to-day lives and the way our landscapes came to be, and how best to manage our landscapes in the future. There are big gaps in our data, though. It's really hard to see what the natural environment was like in the past. And without understanding this, it's really difficult to see how people were changing the natural environment. I'm using micro-remains at an 800-year-old archaeological site in the traditional territory of the Sts'ailes to try and understand these changes. The Sts'ailes lived and continue to live along the Harrison River in the lower mainland of BC. It's about 2 hours east of us here. The aim of my thesis is to understand what the environment looked like in the past. And I'm going to be doing this by addressing two main questions. One, what conditions were like before people lived there? And two, what conditions were like while the Sts'ailes were living there? The site that I'm working at is an island in the middle of the Harrison River, and the river has been eroding away the banks of the island, leaving exposed profiles. So I can clearly see in these exposed profiles the layers that have been deposited over time. And so by looking at micro-remains in these deposits, I can see changes in the environment through time. So micro-remains like phytoliths, diatoms, and sponges can tell me a lot about the environment in the past. Phytoliths are made by plants. They tell me what vegetation would have been like. Diatoms and sponges both live in the water and can give me really specific information about water conditions at the time. So by using all three of these together, I get a pretty clear picture of what the environment in the past would have been like. And this is important because as archaeologists working in BC, we have not fully explored the potential of these micro-remains to tell us about what the environment looked like in the past. By understanding how they relate to the natural environment, we can start to see the impact that people have had on the landscape and the impact that we continue to have. Thank you.